A cold is okay because I want to have some right now.
This is warm and everything's
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
ready to be poured. Not boiled,
Some more people are coming? Yeah?
See my last name.
Ah, good. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. You okay?
Yes.
Good.
Much better.
Much better? Very nice. Verse number 10. घनच्छन्न दृष्टिः
घनच्छन्नदृष्टिः
घनच्छन्नमर्कम्
घनच्छन्नमर्कम्
यथा निष्प्रभम्
यथा निष्प्रभम्
मन्यते चातिमूढः
मन्यते चातिमूढः
तथा बद्धवत्
तथा बद्धवत्
भाति यो मूढदृष्टेः
भाति यो मूढदृष्टेः स नित्योपलब्धिस्वरूपो महात्मा.
Yeah. So, ghanachanna drishtihi. Drishti means what? Vision. Yeah. Ghanena achanna drishtihi yasya. The one for whom, the one whose vision is clouded by what? The clouds of delusion. Yeah. One whose vision is clouded by delusion. It's like a metaphor here. So this fellow whose vision is clouded by delusion, what does this fellow say? Oh look, the sun is covered by the clouds. Where is the cloud? In the head, in the vision. In the head it is called brain fog. So, even though medically there is something called brain fog, here we are talking of ajnana fog. Yeah, fog jnana. So, ajnana fog. A fog that keeps myself away from the reality of what this whole limitlessness, this glory called Sat Chit Ananda is all about. I'm kept away because of this fog. And the fog is here. The fog is here, meaning, we all know the whole term rose-colored glasses. Everything looks nice and pink, and that's a metaphor for being in denial. And this is another metaphor for being in denial. There one is in denial of what is, Here also one is in denial of what is by reaffirming what is not. There is a special kind of denial where when what is not becomes what is, there is no room for what is. There is no room for what if. This is not true. There is no room for what is, which is Sat Chit Ananda, which is Nitya Upalabdhi Swarupaha Atma, to be reclaimed, waiting to be reclaimed as the truth of Aham. There is no room for that. Because constantly I am reiterating what is. I'm reiterating what is not as what is. I'm making what is not into what is. What a big knot, huh? Yeah, pun intended. This is called Hridaya Granthihi, heart knot. So this is Ajnanam, and this Ajnanam is, as I have pointed out before, Ajnanam is not a problem for, bipeds other than human beings and quadrupeds other than human beings. Sometimes human beings behave like quadrupeds, so we have to insert that. So for other animals and also plants, not knowing this, not knowing what is not a problem, because they do not have the wherewithal to come to wrong conclusions by making the what is not into what is and crying as a result. Tears of samsara. First there are fears of samsara, and then the fears melt into tears of samsara. And so therefore the animals do not have that capacity, being programmed within the laws of Prakriti, Mother Nature. They may have some basic moral compass. A dog that has just stolen your dinner will look a little guilty, even the most hardened canine will just try to slink under the sofa when it sees you coming. They may do that, but then 2 minutes later they forget, right? But the human being carries on, be feeling guilty. Yes, Your Honor, I am guilty. Yes, Your Honor, guilty as charged, guilty. And then the human being has the extra ability to take on the guilt of other people also in the family, in the society. That's why, and then in the community. So therefore we have Catholic guilt, Jewish guilt, Christian guilt, Hindu guilt, it's all kinds of different guilts. This shows that there is something there happening. Cat, of course, doesn't know how to spell guilt, will make you guilty, but doesn't know how to spell the word guilt. Lives in its own glory. So these are all under the programming of Ishvara. Under the programming of the goddess Shakti, they live. And they are just in a place that lifespan, sometimes it's 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, 20 years, the lifespan of these animals that are kept as pets. They are all just bhoga shariram. Bhoga sharirani means a body in which previous karmas are gotten rid of, exhausted. Oh, then I should be an animal all the time because I'm just exhausting karma. Yes, but you are not gaining any knowledge. Neither are you gaining the punya which is needed to gain the knowledge, a background. That punya alone allows you to see something is wrong. With this situation of feeling guilty when I should not, feeling hurt, feeling powerless, disempowered. And that punya alone allows the desire to be free. Manifests that freedom, desire to be free, allows that desire to come to the forefront of other desires. And the punya alone takes you to what else is needed? You have the desire, and then, desire for freedom is there.
Human birth.
Back to
Human birth is there, yes.
Okay.
And what else is needed?
grace.
Grace, that we are talking of punya only.
Parampara, so that
You need a teacher.
Oh.
Yeah, you need a guru. So then the punya will make you be a guru hound. You've started to sniff out, which road will lead to the guru. Like a moksha hound is on the search for the guru, because you see, the desire for moksha is not all that is needed. Because the desire for moksha, everybody has. It's a universal desire. Mumukshutvam is not enough. What does one need? Jignasutvam. What is jignasa?
desire for knowing.
Desire for teaching, for knowledge. Because I know that there is one more step here. I know I have to be free through letting go of this notion that I am bound. That I am bound is a notion. But when I don't know it, it becomes an ocean of samsara. This is the problem. So therefore, see, for all these things to align, without the human birth, knowledge is impossible. I have said before, even though I am assured that many cats and dogs take the online classes. It's so sad, Previous lives, some memory is there. Oh, this is somewhat familiar. There is a deja vu. And dog has this, dogged feeling. The spelling of my name should be G-O-D. Something is wrong. But it doesn't have the wherewithal to do this. When Pujya Swamiji was teaching one time, there was one dog in the ashram. There were many dogs, but this one dog and this one cat were always fighting, screaming at each other. The cat would say, "Ah!" and the dog would just run after it and growl and bark in, inimitable ways. And then what they would do is that when Pujya Swamiji went to sit to teach, they would both come through different doors in the lecture hall and go under the chair. Yeah, that was all full of curtains under the platform where Swamiji taught. And would they fight underneath? Not a peep would be heard from either of them. As soon as the class was over, no sooner than Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam, that was chanted. That noise would come from under there, but not until the final mantra was chanted. And whoever tried to remove them from under there, Swamiji would say, "It's okay, some vague memory is setting in, let them listen." Maybe they were brahmacharis who ran away from the ashram in the last life because of resistance or fears that Vedanta was bringing up, not enough grace to push through the resistance, to embrace the fears and the tears and go for it. So perhaps that is what was happening, so let them stay. So this is what it is. So what is the use, correct? So this human birth is very important. But the human birth comes with a very weird blessing. Yes, the desire to be free is there, but what kind of this desire to be free when there is no bondage? When there is bondage, okay, you can understand the desire to be free. But this fellow who has no bondage has the desire to be free means what? Where are we going to go? But this is a very precarious and a mixed blessing of the human condition. As though bound, doesn't know, feels bound and longs for freedom. And what is this bondage? If you look closely and deeply into the nature of this so-called bondage, the bondage is just an occlusion of what is. An occlusion in the vision of seeing the Jagat as benign and free of conspiracy theories. Yeah, free of conspiracy theories. Everywhere you go, it's full of, the whole world thrives. That's how you have newspapers or online news, Yahoo and all these, CNN, you go. It's full of conspiracies. A group of people, either one person or a group of people or sometimes entire nations, are completely and without any doubt convinced that another person, another group of people or another nation is totally conspiring to bring their downfall. This is the Jagat. And so where do these conspiracy theories come from? Yeah, Manokalpitam. Manokalpitam means they are born in the mind, imagined by the mind, based on what is the raw material. Because you see, we need raw material for everything. So what is the raw material out of which these various conspiracy theories are crafted? Ignorance cannot be the raw material. Ignorance is there already. Yes, but yes, the byproducts of these ignorance, which is, my own desires, one's own fears become the skeins, to knit this sweater of conspiracy. And then you wear it and feel cozy afterwards, supposedly safe. And you keep knitting, you have two colored skeins, raga, dvesha, fear, desire, any two colors you can take. And you keep knitting, knit, pearl, and sometimes, there is a problem. I don't know knitting, okay, that's all I know. Yeah, and then you can make various designs. Knit 2, pearl 2, knit 1, pearl 1, knit 1, pearl 2, all these various designs. And what is this? Dropped thing. Where there is a chain that has been dropped, one link is missing in this conspiracy theory. Where? Here, of course. The conspiracy theory with a missing link. And that's why in 2014 there is a whole, lots of people who still believe that the world is only 3,000 years old. Then they do not believe in evolution. You can show them these Iceman Otzi, you can show them Ice Woman Lucy, you can show them all these people. You can say carbon dating, they say that is a conspiracy. That the bones can undergo, not just bones, any, architectural material from ancient times can undergo this test, and this wonderful technology called carbon dating, by which you can establish the age of the more or less age from mummy to daddy. You can say what is the age, and they say we don't believe in this. That's a conspiracy. You see, how can science be a conspiracy? How can facts be a conspiracy? That's a conspiracy. And then there are all these, and they will stick to this. And they want the children also in the schools to say that they were just dropped down by God on the seventh day. Really? There is one project in which I have been involved. It is called the Clergy Letter Project. There is one man who is doing untiring work in trying to distribute letters to individual clergy people, clergymen, all over the country, perhaps in other countries too, and to have them on board so that the children can learn proper science and and not this literal biblical interpretation. Nothing wrong with the Bible, or the problem is with the interpretation. Bertrand Russell said it very nicely. Problem is not with faith, it is those that regard themselves as faithful. Yeah, that's what it is. So this is the whole conspiracy theory. Look at the occlusion. Ghanachanna drishti means not just an individual distortion of my own reality, but we multiply this by 7 billion people, and each one having a pet peeve based on their own identity. And when you look into the pet peeve, they are trying to protect something, kshema, and based on a certain identity. This is who I am, and that identity is what? Don't say Satchidananda, that would be the wrong answer. Here is a big clue. Yeah, that identity is, whether it's a group identity, whether it's I am as good as the body, I am as good as the mind, etc. And sometimes it's an identity based on a certain aberration. Identity based on sickness. I am disabled because I have these problems. I am deaf. And so many, and this is a big thing raging in so many of these disability, so-called disability, these communities. I'm not trying to make fun of disabilities, but what I'm saying is The so-called meaning, when you take that identity on as the only way of identifying yourself, it's problematic, it's limiting. This is what it is. And there is a lot of, that's why we have a lot of, what's its name? Controversy surrounding this cochlear implants. You know what cochlear implants are? Yeah. Yes. And there are several people in the deaf community who can benefit from that. And of course, everything is controversial. Maybe some people cannot benefit from that. Maybe it makes it worse. Maybe the operation is not good. I don't know. But the thing is, many people are opposed to it in principle because they feel like if I start hearing again, my deaf identity will be taken away from me. There is insecurity. There's insecurity, deep insecurity, that you want to take away the only thing that has defined me for X numbers of years. And that insecurity is a byproduct of ignorance, ajnana. So this is ghanachanna drishtihi, and because of this ghanachanna drishtihi, what happens? People go to war. All wars are subjective. There is no objective war, including Mahabharata, subjective. Everything is subjective, based on one's own understanding, like Duryodhana, extremely subjective. I am entitled to this. Why? You're neither the son of the king, nor, you're not, your father is not king. He is just holding a post to help out. That's all. You're neither the son, your father is not the king, and you are not the eldest or the prince regent or anything like that. So what is your stake to the throne? No, I am the one. So, ghanachanna drishti. And even in modern times, we see this ghanachanna drishti. Where the best example is the scarcity mentality. There is not enough of, and you fill in the blanks. You fill in whatever. We start with money, Who has enough money? Raise your hand. Nobody will. Even if Bill Gates and all these people, Carlos Slim. Who is that? He's supposed to be the richest person right now. Man. Neither is he slim nor the pocketbook is slim. But anyhow, so, and even if he were present, he will not raise the hand. Nobody will say, Alam, enough. Nobody will say. Who has health? Enough health. Very few people will raise their hands. Who has enough happiness? No one will raise their hands. So like this, there is this subjective, curtains coming down on the perception. What's the perception? A misperception, missed perception. Based on all on my own insecurity, not centered on the Jagat. The Jagat is fine as it is. It doesn't need to be fixed up. It's not complaining, I'm never enough. It's not saying, oh, please fix me. And the Jagat is not saying, I'm full of conspiracies, check me out. The Jagat is not saying anything. Jagat simply is. So I also am. Yes, you also are. Then what's the problem? You plus Ghanachanna Drishti is. That's the problem. So which one should I remove? You cannot remove. Why? Nityopalabdhi swarupoham atma. There is a small problem in removing I. No, I can remove I. In fact, I have done it many lifetimes before. I can remove I have this issue with invisibility. So I can just go to a quiet corner and be like a lamp, a standing lamp that is permanently turned off. And I'm just there as a fixture. I know how to remove myself. But then you are, correct? No, but other people don't see me. Yeah, like the kitten who is drinking the milk with the eyes closed. Do you exist or not? Yes. So then you cannot remove yourself. So then what else is left to remove? Ghanachanna drishtihi. The occlusion in the vision has to be removed, several lifetimes ago. But it's not too late to start now. Never too late to start. Right now we have to peel the vision, and that's why there are all the ancient texts talk about removing the cataract. The cataract is the byproduct of ignorance, where the vision, you use the eyes to see, so the eyes become a metaphor for grasping the vision, although the vision is not seen through the eyes. Oh, there goes this wonderful Brahman who I had missed. No, here is the wonderful Brahman I keep missing because I keep looking elsewhere, and I keep looking with the blinders on, and I keep looking through the vision of, through the tunnel vision of fears, insecurities and desires. All of it based on a scarcity mentality, on fears that I am not enough, that I don't have enough, that I am not acceptable to myself, I don't love myself. All this is the foundation, the bricks of this big pillar, this wall. That's why one is not able to see clearly. And so there are, so you cannot remove yourself. So better remove the scales that make the vision extremely suspect, and make this vision extremely susceptible to conspiracy theories, whether individual or group. And so here the metaphor is wonderful. We saw the meaning of this yesterday. And what is the metaphor? Just like the person whose eyes are clouded, the one whose vision is clouded is the one who says that the sun has been covered by the clouds. If the sun were to be covered by the clouds, then you could not even see the clouds. This is something we have to understand. How can you see the clouds? Cannot. But the fact that you can see the clouds shows what? The sun is not covered at all. The covering, which are the clouds, are lit up by the sun, and the sun as though allows itself to be covered. And that area is known as Eugene. That's all, especially in the winter. The sun, as it were, obliges and allows itself to be clouded over by these fat rain clouds. But then what is it doing? It is shining the light on the fact that it is covered. It is as though covered. This is what we have to see here. It's shining the light on the fact that it is as though covered, that there is something attempting to cover it. Because if you take a plane and go 10,000 feet, it's fine, it's all shining. You see, it's just a perspective. So even here too, if you look at that which is exemplified through verse number 10, we have the same issue here. And what is that same issue? There is an as though covering. The covering is not real, and the light of Atma shines not only on what is, but it also shines that there is a covering that needs to be removed. So how to remove this? The clouded vision, rose-colored glasses, okay, you just take off the glasses. You have cataract surgery, laser cataract surgery, and then everything is fine. But what do you do now? What do you do with this? The covering is not really the problem. Because the covering is as though. That I take the covering to be real is the problem. So we have a program to wear away the covering, wear out the covering. And what is that program called? Shravanam. Yeah. Shravanam wears out the covering through producing brilliant but brief respite from the covering. Then in the class, I see the sun. There goes Atma. Oh, I am that. Oh, and then, what is this? That is the zombie jiva coming back. In between brief moments of life, there is this business as usual. Blah, everything is flatlined. But then the idea is that when you are exposed to these brief but brilliant moments of uncovering, then what happens? And then you understand that to be real. And it's easy to understand that to be real because you want to be uncovered anyway. Nobody says I'm happy being Ghana Channa Drishti. Nobody says I'm happy with this covering. Even the people who don't do Shravanam, who don't do come to class, are not saying I'm happy with this covering, please let this continue, oh Lord. No, nobody says that. Everybody says off with this cloak of ignorance, off with whatever is not making me see the glory, off with this bondage, off with these handcuffs of samsara, take them out. Off with this jail, all these bars, and I feel bound. Everybody says I feel bound. You talk to the spiritual person, and the spiritual person will say, God is playing hide and seek with me, hide and go seek. I am the seeker. And then God is hiding. I have to look. Are you here? Are you there? Oh, what about there? Or maybe you're over there. Where are you? And then briefly, ever so briefly, you show yourself and then you are gone again. Why are you so elusive, O Lord? The spiritual persons call and cry, Darshan kab doge Ghanashyam. Oh, and it's a very appropriate song for this. Ghanashyam means Shyama, the Lord as dark as the clouds. Ghana means here cloud, same Ghana here. Darshan kab doge, when are you going to give me darshan? Oh Lord, as dark as the clouds. Is the Lord as dark as the cloud? Really? Who is dark? The vision is dark. My own way of looking. The covering is not there, it is here. And then of course it is compounded by very funny verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan gives his address in the 15th chapter. And what does Bhagavan say? Bhagavan Krishna says, Natad bhasayate suryaha. There where I live, the sun does not shine. Oh, maybe it's a cool moonlit walk to Bhagavan. Na shashanko na pavakah. No moon. Oh, flashlight? No pavakah, no firebrand, no torch, no flashlight. Now we are in trouble. This Bhagavan's house is very scary. How to find Bhagavan's house? Where no light shines. No source of light shines. No source of light is allowed to shine. Now, I don't know if I want to go here or not. And that's compounded in the next line. Yad gatva na nivartante, tad dhama paramam mama. Having reached once that house, nobody returns. Are we talking of Bhagavan's house or the cockroach motel? There is something called cockroach motel. What happens there? You check in, but you don't check out. So this is sounding like Bhagavan's house, all dark, and then you go in and you don't come out. What is this? Why is Bhagavan's house all dark? Because that source of light, which is the light of all lights, makes all sources of light pale into oblivion, as it were. understanding whose truth as the source of myself and my own light, when I see that my own light is not beyond that light, is not outside of that light, in fact it's just the one and the same identical light, there is no coming back into this world of ghanachanna drishti, this repeated subjectivity ad nauseum which you feel like throwing up. That is samsara. No more return into samsara. That is the meaning of this. So the program for removing ghanachanna drishti is extremely straightforward. You start off by connecting to that brilliance that you are. How? Shravanam, through exposing yourself to the knowledge. And then, after a certain amount of exposure, there is the understanding, the wrong belief that I am not this recedes and gives way to the correct understanding. And what is the correct understanding? I am really that which I seek. The seeker and the sought are one and the same. And this is enough, because that is the Shravanam is the scalpel. Shravanam just doesn't mean listening to whatever you want. It's listening to a proper guru who can handle the subject matter, who has been well taught by his guru, well taught by her guru, his guru, her guru. You can go all the way to Narayana, all the way to Lord Krishna, whichever one you want to choose. And so the one who is taught properly and who is able to handle this scalpel, because if you go to the person who cannot handle the scalpel, it's a dangerous surgery. Yeah, the distortion will lead to more distortions. First it was just everything was looking kind of dark, but now everything is looking, the whole world is looking checkered. This is a problem. So we have to have a proper teaching, proper exposure to the unfolding of the Shastra handled properly. The scalpel that removes this ignorance has to be handled with a steady hand, and the steadiness comes from, not in the case of the doctor it comes from practice, in the case of the guru it comes from being well taught, and it comes from someone who has internalized the teaching. That's what you mean by a steady hand. And then what happens? That should be enough to remove the cataract. But then, if there are more occlusions in the vision, or so-called occlusions, then that means that they have to be addressed by removing the doubts, the vagueness, the errors, the habitual orientations through the other two devices given to us. What are they? Mananam and Nididhyasanam. Mananam, a kind of a reflection which allows for questions and answers, where either you ask the questions and receive the answers, or sometimes the answers come while standing under the shower. Why shower? Because blood circulation. And so the answers come from where? From what has been studied, of course. That's where the answers can come. And Nididhyasanam, contemplation on the words of what has been studied. Shravanam words are contemplated. Words of the Shastra are contemplated upon. Why? Because they get rid of orientations which have become a habit. They have become a total habit. And what's the habit? That I just like to, even though I am no longer ignorant of my nature, I wear a habit of the ignorance and behave in certain ways that are habitual. So this is what is removed through Mananam and Nididhyasanam. And the one who does this is called an intelligent person, because it is intelligent to seek help. We have seen this before. But here the Ghanachanna Drishtihi is called what? Atimudhaha, doubly deluded. Why doubly deluded? First is Agrahanam, has the veiling has happened, and then secondly denies the veiling and weaves an alternative reality and lives in that alternative reality. That is doubly mudha, ati mudha. And believes in their own version of the world that they have thought up, and this is the problem. And then what happens? Therefore, mudha drishtehe, for this person, who is this person? The person who is under the spell of the mudha drishti, the one who has this subjective vision. For this person, baddhavat bhati yaha atma. So for this person, the atma is permanently bound. Baddhavat bhati, shines or becomes apparent as though it is bound. So the one who says I am bound, atma means I. So the one who feels bound, the one who feels constrained, the one who feels all completely caught up in samsara, and for whom the bondage is real. Because you see, this is a very interesting logistic problem. It's a problem of logistics. If bondage is real, if dukkha is real, it cannot be removed. Why?
Real is unchanging.
Real is unchanging. Real is Sat is non-negatable. If dukkha is Sat, Sat is abadhitam, non-negatable, unchanging. Trikalepi tishtati. So then dukhi, this life, next life, this is what it is. Life after life after life. And if one is forever dukhi, then one finds sukha in being forever dukhi. This is how it is, because that's all you know. You don't desire anything else. And that's why we don't send, cards and greetings when sad things happen. Oh, 3 sad things happened to you this week. Congratulations. And then happiness becomes an aberration. Oh, you're such a dharmic person. Why are these happy things which are against your own nature happening all the time? That's not true. What one wants to be is unbound. What one wants to be is happy. What one wants to be is what one seeks is that oneness. That is what one seeks. It's very evident. You ask anyone, that's what they seek. And so, if bondage is real, it cannot be removed. So what's our alternative? If it's not real, what is it? Unreal. So then we have to entertain that bondage is asat. Asat means non-existent, unreal. Then let us chant the closing mantra, because what else is there to do? If it's unreal, then it need not be removed. If it is real, it cannot be removed. The one who keeps trying to remove that which cannot be removed is mudha, ati mudha. And the one that tries to remove something that doesn't exist is got Lady Macbeth syndrome, because she conspired. This is a very brilliant Shakespeare play. She conspired so that her husband would be on the throne, for the brother-in-law to be killed. And that guilt, she didn't tell anybody, and she had got exactly what she wanted, except she was pacing the palace corridors at night, washing off the blood, stains only she could see from her hands. She, went into OCD, this obsessive compulsive disorder of thinking that her hands were blood stained, where she was always washing her hands and keeping on trying to bleach the blood stains out night after night. She couldn't live with the guilt of what she had done. This is what it is. So if you try to remove something that's not there, then you are either Lady Macbeth or mad. You're mad. First you are mudha, in the first instance. Here it's madness. What are you trying to remove? Oh, but then what is this Shravanam? You just said it removes Ghanachanna Drishti, it removes all this. So what is it that we are trying to remove? That is my question to you. What is it that we are trying to remove? If bondage is real, it cannot be removed. If bondage is unreal, it need not be removed. अब क्या करें? Huh? Yeah, what to do now? I'm in a fix. How shall I go on now? This is a big problem. This is a big problem. So therefore, we have to redefine bondage as that which is neither real nor unreal. Ha! Now we can go on. Yeah. Because if it is real, then it cannot be removed. It's a useless exercise. If it is unreal, what are we trying to remove? It is as though, and it comes under, and we are safe here because if we ask, bondage is like what other thing in the universe is it like? Then the answer is it's like every other thing in the universe. Yeah, everything from pot, to thought, from cat, hat, mat, rat, everything in the universe, everything that I call Vastu in the universe has this problem of occupying a dubious, having a dubious connection with so-called reality. Even this flower. Is this real? No, this is not real. You cannot say this is not real. This is real. Because flower is, flower was, then compost is, compost was, another flower tree is, another flower tree was, like this it keeps on going. It is not real. If I keep holding it, that too with these nice warm hands, it's going to demonstrate it very soon. Okay, it's not real. Okay, if it's not real, what is it that you see? So if you remove the Ghanachanna Drishti, will you stop seeing the flower? No, you will see the flower because there is an objective perception. It's not just me seeing the flower, you are also seeing the flower. So that means there is something there. You cannot dismiss it that it is as non-existent because exist it does. And you cannot say it is existent because the existent, slot has been occupied by this thing called Sat, which is upholding the existence of this very flower. That slot is Sat, has been occupied by the word is, which cannot be put along with this flower on the same line as a synonym. You can say flower is, which means the isness of the flower is outside of the flower. It has nothing to do with the flower. That isness alone projects and retracts this flower into itself. That is nothing but Ishvara. The first two letters of Ishvara is. All is resolves in Ishvara. All there is one source that is sentient, conscious, and we have seen earlier, projects into many, many, many and varied forms and names. Flower being one of them. So the is occupied by Sat. That is slot, is cannot go to flower. And you cannot say flower is not, because you see it, it is available for transaction, you can smell it, you can touch it, you can do all kinds of things with it. You can put it in your hair, you can adorn Bhagavan with it, you can put it in, back in the vase, back in the pot. That's why this is called flower pot, and so you can do all kinds of very nice, cool things with a flower. It is available on the empirical reality. But then what? It is neither Sat nor Asat. So what is it? Mithya. In between we have a new category called for things that occupy the reality of flower. It is Mithya. Neither here nor there. Nor categorically existent, nor categorically non-existent. It is a projected, manifested reality, the source of whose manifestation is untouched by that projection. That source is Aham Nitya Upalabdhi Swarupaha Atma. And anything else, including the fact that without this flower I cannot live, or without anything I cannot live, is just a subjectivity. So this is, first we have a universal subjectivity. Ishvarik subjectivity called mithya, right? There is a Ishvarik subjectivity because Ishvara's play, Ishvara's Leela. And in this Leela, what do we have? All kinds of names and forms saying, take me, I am real. Take me, I am the one who is real. I am the one who is real. Each thing glitters shinier than the other one. And we have an Ishvarik subjectivity. The projected universe. Then the projected universe cannot have the power, since it is inert and it is dependent upon the only sentient source which is not inert, which is all knowledge and limitless, which is the truth of this I. The inert universe cannot give me any grief. Correct? And so what? So now we have to look for something else here that gives me grief. Because grief I am subject to. So if the inert projected universe, if the Ishvarik projection is benign, then there is some other projection that is not so benign. Whose projection is that? My own projection. So there is an Ishvarik mithya, and then there is Jivik mithya. And so that we don't confuse the two, Jivik mithya we can call mithya within mithya, or we can call pratibhasikam. Pratibhasikam. Very, very wonderful. So pratibhasika, my own mithya. So now when this verse is urging us to remove ghanachanna drishti, which mithya shall we remove? Huh? Ishvarik mithya. No? You sure?
Yes.
Exactly. But why not remove Ishvarik mithya? I want a better reason, not just because it's benign. You cannot remove it. Try removing something. No, I can remove this flower. You can remove it? Yes. What can you do? I can pluck it out. One by one. Then what do you have?
Petals.
Flower is in the form of petal is, correct? And the petals I can put in a grinder. Then what? Crushed petal is,
Compost.
and then I can put it out in the soil. Compost is, and then that gives birth to another plant. That plant is cannot go away. There's nothing you can add to this universe, nothing you can take out from this universe. Nothing. The scientists also understand this. And you can only transform. And then you feel good. I set fire to something. Fire is Bhagavan. You use the 5 elements to transform something. That's all it is. That's all you can do. So, even if you thought that the Ishvarik projections are the source of your own sadness, and you would like to go on a path of removing them, I suggest you don't begin there, because it is a useless, effort. You cannot take down the Ishvarik projection, but you certainly can, allow the curtains from your own eyes to lift. Imagine the 2 eyes are a little stage and the curtains are going up. With each class they are going up further, further, further. You are seeing more. Oh, nice. Oh, yes, this is wonderful. Oh, so many things bothered me. And other than you, nothing bothers me now. So like this, the so-called enlightenment is nothing but the removal of this curtain. This mithya within mithya, I get rid of this in front of this own eyes. And it's not one aha moment, it's a gradual clarity of the shedding of this curtain. Yeah. So it's a growing clarity. You grow in clarity. And then, few years later you say, how could I have missed that? This is so obvious. And we have a story from one of our Swamis who is very famous in Chennai, Swami Paramarthanandji. And he was when he began teaching one time, he was very ecstatic, goes the story. And he just completely was so excited. He thought he had discovered something new in a particular text that he was beginning to teach. And as he was teaching, he just couldn't handle it. He was just so happy. And then he couldn't wait to go home, because when he went home, he looked at his old notes that he had taken when he had studied, and it was all there. It was rediscovered. That's why it says, Ascharyavat pashyati, Ascharyavat vadati, Ascharyavat shrunoti. It's Ascharya, it's a wonder all the way. The one who teaches is a wonder. The one who listens is a wonder. The one who is able to share this knowledge is a wonder. And you know who is the greatest wonder of all? Shrutva api naveda kaschit. Even after listening many, many times, the ones who don't get it are the greatest wonder. The Shruti says. Yeah, even after getting it, you don't see that this is the subjective curtains of my own, woven through the skeins of my own fears and desires have to come down, for which raga dveshas have to be suspended, for which seva has to be done, for which devotion is needed, because without bhakti and without shraddha, without seva, raga dveshas will continue to cloud the intellect. That's why we have a beautiful contrast. In verse 6 we had Shuddha Chetaha. Shuddha Chetaha, the one whose Chittam, whose emotions were, were not binding the person into looking at it in a certain way. The one who was free of subjective binding emotions. And that Shuddha Chetaha in verse number 10 is contrasted with Moodha Drishti. Yeah. Shuddha Chetaha, for the Shuddha Cheta, the Atma shines. For the Moodha Drishti, the Atma doesn't shine. Doesn't shine, no, the Atma shines, but the Moodha Drishti, because of the jungle of fears and desires, is not able to see the Atma, even though it's shining very, very hard. Just like the sun is shining very hard right now, but one is not able to see it. Why? Because of the so-called covering. So this covering has to be removed. Samasteshu vastushvanusyutamekam.
Samasteshu vastushvanusyutamekam.
Samastani vastuni yanna sprishanti.
Samastani vastuni yanna sprishanti.
Viyadvat sada shuddhamachhasvarupaha.
Viyadvat sada shuddhamachhasvarupaha. Sanidjopalabdishvarupo amatma.
Samasteshu vastushu, among all things, in and through all things. Samasta is all, and vastu means thing. Vastushu, samasteshu, in and through all things. Anusyutam, knitted together. What is knitted together? That which is strung together. In all things, anusyutam, the one that is strings all the things together. Like even the beads are strung in a mala with the help of what? The thread. So the thread, the manis here are strung with a thread, and so that, anusyutam means that which pervades everything. Ekam, how many things pervade? Only one thing pervades. What does it pervade? Samasteshu vastushu. All things are pervaded by this one source. And then what? This is a problem because if that one thing has become all things, then that one thing cannot remain itself because it has changed into something. Because clay has become pot. Clay is no longer clay. Clay has become pot. Gold has become ornament. Well, that is the ornament, the pot, etc. are just ways of looking at something. It's ways of looking at something. What is the way of looking at something? It's a point of view versus the view. You can say the pot has transformed, the clay has transformed itself into pot. You can say that. Clay has become pot. And it would not be incorrect to say that. But then, if you look little more deeply, not with Mudha Drishti, but little beyond the Mudha Drishti, you say that you can see that pot and clay are not synonyms. They are not synonyms at all. They are not two things. Otherwise, you can use the same word, exchangeably. But clay is clay, pot is, pot, but still you cannot say that they are synonyms. They are just one thing with different avatars. Clay is one avatar, a lump by the roadside or by the riverside, even better. And then pot is an avatar of that same clay. One is the cause, one is the as though cause, one is the as though effect. Why do I say as though? Because the effect inheres the cause. In the effect, the cause persists. The cause hasn't gone away. Because where is the clay? Poteshu, in all the pots, But then when I say the clay is in the pot, so if I do like this, will the clay come out? Clay? No clay. Clay nasti. Where is the clay? No, it's underneath the pot. Oh, underneath, okay. Underneath is just one hole here, that's all. No, it's all around the pot. It's surrounding the pot. You cannot, all the prepositions die a quiet death when we try to understand this. In fact, the pot is nothing but clay. The weight of pot is weight of clay, color of pot is color of clay. The smell of the pot is, you're not smelling the pot. What you're getting is the fragrance of the clay, the earth. So all there is clay. The pot is an incidental manifestation, correct? Yeah. This is from the standpoint of clay. The pot is an incidental manifestation. Let's say with the pot you make along with the pot you make a lid for the pot, and the lid is another incidental manifestation, This one is a fancier incidental manifestation, this one less fancy. But nonetheless it's an incidental manifestation. Then you have another pot. You have one more pot. Glazed pot, small pot, incidental manifestation. This pot says, I'm bigger than you. But yes, but I'm cuter than you. This one says, you may be big, but I'm cute. So, so this is what it is. And especially when I'm decorated with a nice yellow flower, you should see how wonderful I look. There's none other than like myself. Look at me. And you, just slink away. You're a crackpot. You're full of cracks. Go away. Go and hide in a corner. You see, at the level of pots, there is a clash. Correct? But really speaking, it's many and varied, infinitely varied forms of clay. Then there is a small pot is eaten by large pot is eaten by larger pot. Okay, cough it up, it's not coming out, what to do? Swaha. And so like this, we have from the standpoint of the clay, the small pot is clay, the painted pot is clay, the glazed pot is clay. It's like a person with makeup, glaze, that's all it is. You put some lipstick and whatever else, and then that is what it is, glaze. And then all this, so from the standpoint of the clay, it has not undergone any change. It's the same clay that is in all the pots or manifest as the pots without undergoing any change. But then what? But then you cannot say it from the standpoint of the pot, you cannot say the same thing. What same thing? From the standpoint of the clay, you can say the pot is an incidental expression of me, the clay can say. This lid is an incidental expression of me. I am beyond this lid. I am myself and I am also manifest. I am uniquely myself and I am also manifest as this lid without undergoing any lessening, decrease or increase or transformation. I am that. The clay can say. Can the pot say the same thing? This is where we have some problem. Yeah. But from the standpoint of the pot, the clay is intrinsic to its manifestation, not incidental. From the standpoint of the clay, the pot comes and goes is incidental. From the standpoint of the clay, it is incidental. Pot comes, pot goes. Million pots can come and million pots can go. But from where the pot sits, without clay it cannot exist. So this is what is described in verse number 11 very beautifully. Sarveshu vastushu, no, samasteshu vastushu anusyutam ekam. That one clay-like, all-pervasive substance. And what is that substance? That which cannot be called substance, where all the words fail, the mind also fails, that which is nameless, formless. We can call it Nitya Upalabdhi Swarupaha Atma, we can call it Brahman. That Brahman, that truth, that Satchit Ananda pervades everything. But then what about from the standpoint of the things? So all things depend on Satchidananda for their existence. All things depend on which for their existence, which Sat. But then from the standpoint of Sat, it does not, no thing can transform the Sat, no thing can change the Sat. They are just a projection. Samastani vastuni, all these so-called things, there's only one thing which can be called a thing, which is Sat. All these other things are no things, nothings. So this bunch of nothings cannot touch the thing, the only thing upon which they depend to have a name and form. They cannot, they cannot alter the Sat. Sat is not altered. If you have 1 million ornaments, the shine belongs not to the ornament but to the gold. The weight belongs not to the ornament but to the gold. So here also, all these things live in an dependent existence. This entire Jagat leans on Brahman. That's why it's called Brahmalina. No, that's a different it's a different meaning. Lina means absorbed. But here, English word leans on Brahman. Everything leans on Brahman. Meaning, without Brahman, there is no existence. Like even that we call shirt. Shirt is dependent upon fabric. Fabric is, you cannot say it the other way around. Fabric is not dependent upon shirt. But our problem is that any example you use, fabric is dependent on something else. Yarn is dependent on cotton. Cotton is dependent on fibers. Fibers are dependent on molecules. Molecules are dependent on Brahman. But what is Brahman dependent on? Brahman is the only thing that is not bound or dependent on anything. And that Brahman is you. That's when the whole thing gets completed. If you just end up in Brahman, it's not enough. That Brahman, that the source of what is you. How do you know? Because I am. You can never deny that. So the whole Vedanta Shastra is all dependent on that self-shining I alone. Self-shining I. The whole Shastra is dependent on this I, really. If supposing the I was not self-effulgent and self-shining, we wouldn't have had a single Upanishad. And so therefore what? Samasteshu vastushu anusyutam ekam. Ekam anusyutam. The one thing alone is. And what is that one thing? That is the only thing worth being called a thing. Because all the other things are no things, pretending to be things. Like the crow who stuck a few peacock feathers and crashed the peacock dance. So everything, every flower shines. It does not shine, it shines after. That original thing, the only thing that shines independently. The flower, shines as a discrete thing because it borrows the Satchit. Yeah. All sentient things borrow the Satchit, the insentient things borrow the Sat. That's all it is. Just shines, shines, shines after. There's only one thing that shines. And that is you. All the other things is a borrowed shine, which wears out. The form and the name wears out. The shine goes back to the borrower. To the lender, which is Brahman. Brahman is intact because this shine is not regulated like electricity. Brahman does not send a bill every month to the Jagat. Look, you have used so much of Satchitananda, it is metered, you have to pay up. No, it is just endless. There is no scarcity because it is not like electricity. There is no scarcity. There is no load. There is no, this much for the industries and this much for the households and this much for the toasters and this much for the stoves. Nothing like that. Any amount of appliances can plug into this source and it will never be exhausted. And that source is you. That is the shine from which everything else derives its existence. So then all things are Brahman, we can easily say that. But for that to be true, Brahman cannot be anything, any one thing. Because if any one thing is Brahman, then what happens? It becomes finite in time and in place. Becomes finite. So you can say all pots are clay. This pot is clay, that pot is clay, that Swaha pot is clay, Aha pot is clay, every pot is clay. But clay is not any one pot. Pot is clay, clay is not pot. Everything is Brahman, Brahman is not any one thing. Samasteshu vastushu ekam anusyutam. But at the same time, samastani vastuni yam nas prishanti. None of the things can affect or touch it, alter it, scare it out of existence, and have a rebellion. All the things in the Jagat say, let's have a coup against Brahman. What will happen if they do that? They will obliterate themselves. Yeah, even if that were possible. Cannot do that. Let's overthrow Brahman. We are tired of this fellow getting all the credit in the Vedanta books, and let's overthrow Brahman. Because I am also somebody. Nothing will happen. Because Brahman will just shine the light and keep quiet. Will not participate in this rebellion because it's like cutting the limb upon which you sit. I am going to negate myself, And for such things the Upanishad says, Asanne vasabhavati asad brahmeti vedachet. If you deny Brahman, you become non-existent because for a small little detail, because you happen to be Brahman. And so if you deny Brahman, what will happen? You deny, it's a worst form of self-denial. And this is what is also talked about by the Bhagavad Gita in the ninth chapter. Ninth chapter is very interesting because it says that, because it says something. What does it say? It says that, Bhagavan Krishna says, I'm going to teach you a big secret of secrets. Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam. And what am I going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? You are just going to be so happy with this secret. What is the secret? Maya tatamidam sarvam, jagadavyakta murtina. Maya Jagad Avyakta Murtina, by this unmanifest truth of everything. This whole universe is tatam. Tatam means anusyutam, pervaded. And then what? Matsthani sarva bhutani, all beings derive their being through this one being which is myself alone. And then the very next verse he says, Nacha matsthani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaram. Look at this magic of mine. I am in all things, but nothing is in me. Yeah. All things are not derive their being from me, but I am not any one of them. Look at this magic. This is Indian magic. You don't need sleight of hand. You don't need long sleeves to to hide the Jagat and say, look, Jagat is gone. We can still say, look, Jagat is gone. And then what? You can just hold the pot in your hand and say, pot is gone. All there is clay. You don't have to make the pot disappear into the sleeves, Yeah, and say, pot is gone. You can have the pot right there and say, what pot? What thought? What pot? Oh, it's clay. Then you say, what thought? Because the thought is also coming at the same category as pot. Oh, pot and thought is the same? Yes, pot and thought is the same. But what about pot thought? Think about that. We'll see tomorrow. So tomorrow I will use a little portion of the class to finish the 12th verse, and then from there directly we will go into Medha Suktam. So we will do that, and here we'll do 2 separate recordings, so it will be easy. So somebody please remind me with this and with this too. Yeah, and so then this is what we will do, and we will chant the closing verse and stop for questions. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Questions? Yeah, God is neither a cave nor is dark. God is you, brighter than all the suns in the universe put together. Yeah. So this is what it is. Yeah. When you feel blissful and happy and you're like flying in heaven, even though you're not in heaven, that is definitely you, and that is moksha. The only difference is that with moksha, you know this to be yourself all the time. You need not jump up and down. It's more of a quiet manifestation. It can be quiet or it can be loud, but it's unchanging. Yeah. Oh, any questions here? Yes.
So, the part about Ishvara's projections being benign, and it's not for us to try to change them. So it's like, then like any prayers or chanting or say I do actually has an effect on my projection, and that's what its purpose is more.
Yes, on one level. See, prayer has a twofold effect. One is an immediate effect, and the immediate effect is called drishta phalam. Interesting, drishta, visible. So the visible effect is to bring down this subjectivity a little bit, at least resolve it at the Ishvaric level, and say, okay, it's no longer in my hands, I have turned it over. So there is a feeling of a clearing, which is good. That is the visible effect. So that lets go of the projection, I am all alone and I can't do anything about this and I don't know how to come out of this. All right? So that is one thing. The second thing is the, what is that? The invisible effect, adrishta. The certain effects which are manifest in time, either in here or hereafter. So the prayer creates a body called punya, a body of good merit, good karma. So even if one is not particularly feeling, like praying, and even if one sort of half-heartedly prays, it's still a punya karma. So because you have taken out the time, you have gone shopping, you have got the materials, you are making the effort. So you get that punya, and that punya bank makes it such that there is a karmic order which is not your projection, because that's part of the manifestation. And that is benign in the sense that as you sow, so shall you reap. In that sense it is extremely benign, because it is fair and it is benign. But then when that karmic order comes and bites me, I'm not going to say it is fair. Correct? It always appears unfair, because I see only so many years of one's life. One sees 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And in that time you say, I have been so good, I have been so wonderful, and why are these bad things happening to me? But that is not karma. Karmic order is a much longer duration than anyone can imagine. It's a huge order. Like various things click into place. Everybody's karma is connected in certain ways to other people's. Nations have karma, there is individual karma, collective karma, family karma, like this. And so that, that is not causing, that can cause discomfort on the physical level. But if it causes sorrow or fear, then it is your own projection. Yes. So then the punya derived from the puja, on the long term level, it even reduces the karma. The karmic bank account, it has the power to reduce, because it creates that some invisible antibodies. Because what is this karma? The karma was previous actions not properly done, and so these actions properly done in the form of worship go and contact those, and they inoculate you against sorrow. And they also, if the prarabdha, if the karma is not too strong, they also are able to bring it down a little bit. So this is what is the so on both levels. Yes, that is what we will say. Another question?
My question was about doubt.
Yeah.
What would you say is the source of doubt? Is it raga vishas? Is it a limited buddhi? Is it karma?
No, doubt is not understanding. Agrahanam is the source of doubt. If you don't follow, there is doubt. Correct? Anyatha grahanam is when you have a projection. So there is no longer a doubt there, because when you have a projection, you are convinced this is the correct thing. But the doubt is always before the projection. Like, is it this or is it that? Because you are entertaining two vikalpas, two possibilities you are entertaining. Asti nava, is this it or is this that? So you are open. It's a doubt means you are open, and it's the product of a good buddhi. A good buddhi will always doubt, like, okay, how shall I take it that this is correct? I need to be convinced. But even after the conviction is given, if there is a refusal to understand or a denial, then it's no longer doubt. Then we are looking at blocks and resistance. Yeah. Yes, we have Kathopanishad today in 1 hour. Yes, absolutely. What did you say about the dark space? No, it's not dark at all. It's not all black. It is just a metaphor, because you are so bright that everything else looks dark. That's what it is. A space that is not lit by, it is impossible to light this space with any artificial light. Okay? That is what it is. Oh.